everybody, we're back again, and today we're going to do something totally different. We're not going to talk about Star Wars. We're not even going to talk about Kenner toys.
Fucking sucks. I mean, this is the biggest pile of shit.
What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the greatest decade to grow up. We're going to talk about the 80s. Growing up in the 80s was an awesome time to grow up. And using that word awesome, that's very 80s. So what I did is I made a list of the 10 best things growing up in the 80s. Well, not really the best, but it's the things that remind me of the 80s when I see it. And what I wanted to do on this list is not count Star Wars, not count Indiana Jones, not going to count Ghostbusters. Here's a little fun fact for you. I've never seen Ghostbusters. Can you believe that? I have never in my life seen Ghostbusters. I've seen parts of it, but I've never seen Ghostbusters 1 or 2. I know, take away my geek card, right? Anyway, this is going to be a top 10 list of things that remind me of the 80s. Things that when I see it, it transports my mind back into being a kid. This is probably my favorite things of the 80s. So let's get started and talk about the top 10. And at number 10 is one of the greatest cartoon series of the 80s, by far.
Are we going to see Frogger, Charlie Brown, and Snoopy and Dungeons and Dragons?
I know you younger kids don't remember Saturday morning cartoons. Because, hey, you're spoiled. You got a whole cartoon channel, but we didn't. The adults had prime time, you know. And what did us kids look forward to? Saturday morning cartoons. Man, we only had about 3 channels back then, so you can't really put into a mind frame today to kids how awesome it was to have a cartoon channel. From probably 7 o'clock in the morning to about 11 in the afternoon, you had cartoons. And man, did they have them. They had the Pac-Man cartoon. Alf had his own cartoon. The Fonz even had his cartoon. Even Rubik's Cube. Yes, Rubik's Cube had a cartoon. But we're going to talk about the one that bridged the gap between the children's cartoons in the morning to the ones in the afternoon. And right before the afternoon ended, there was one that really set the pace. And it was called Dungeons and Dragons.
Wow, neat!
Give me a break.
I don't like this!
Whoa! What's happening?
6 kids got sent back into the land of Dungeons and Dragons, and every episode they hoped to find their way home. Now I'm not going to lie to you, when Dungeons and Dragons first started, I hated it. I never really got into Dungeons and Dragons, and I didn't know what the cartoon was about. But I had a friend that really loved it, and he kept on me, watch it, watch it, watch it. And let me tell you, I watched it, and then I watched it. Dungeons and Dragons just blew your mind. You was coming up that age where you were 12 and 13, getting out of the Rubik's Cube cartoon, the Pac-Man cartoon. You were getting into more of a young adult type storyline. And Dungeons and Dragons was that great bridge for it. I just wish they had a final episode. Sadly, from what I read on the internet, there is a script to a final episode, but it never aired. Bummer, right? But anyway, number 10, Dungeons and Dragons. And if you never watched it, look it up on YouTube.
Dungeons and Dragons!
Okay, we're at number 9, and I'm going to say 4 words, and it's going to transport you back into the 80s. Get them Duke boys! That's right. Maybe it's because I grew up in the South. I don't know about you guys, but the Duke boys from the Dukes of Hazzard, it was the shit. It was the coolest show you could imagine, especially for a 12 or 13-year-old. Bo and Luke Duke, who could not like these guys?
Watch this.
They were good-hearted rebels just trying to run some moonshine without the law getting in the way. And as they say, someday the mountain might get them, but, you know, the law never will. That's right, the law never could get them. Boss Hogg, Enos, none of them could get the Duke boys. If they did get them, they only got them for a little while. Don't Duke boys! And one of the greatest things of the Dukes of Hazzard was when it went off. Sometime at the end, you would get here Roscoe P. Coltrane do his famous laugh. And then sometime you wouldn't. But you would wait there after the show's credits to see if you got that little snippet of a knot. It was great. And we all love the Duke boys. Hey, I even stayed home Friday night from going to spend the night with a friend so I could watch the premiere episode of Enos.
Buckle up now.
Now I think it only lasts about 3 episodes, so Enos didn't make the list, but The Dukes of Hazzard was amazing. I haven't seen it in years, and I really wish somebody would show it again. And I know the talk because it has a Confederate flag on it. Oh, the Duke boys are racist. Trust me. This show was not racist. The Duke boys loved everybody. In fact, one of my best friends, an African-American guy I went to school with named Leonard, me and him played the Duke boys all the time. Who's going to be Bo? Who's going to be Luke? We argue all the time.
Now you watch your language and listen to me. You boys are reacting to prejudice.
Daisy Duke. That's all I got to say right there, Daisy Duke. You guys that grew up in the 80s, you know Daisy Duke, right? Anyway, the Duke boys bust away into number 9 of the best of the 80s.
Fighting the system like a true modern day Robin Hood.
Okay, number 8 we're going to talk about. It was not something you watched on TV, and it wasn't something you saw at the movie theater, but it was somewhere you had to be every Friday and Saturday night. The arcade.
Officials say they are responding to complaints from parents that children have skipped school or stolen money to play the games and made a nuisance of themselves.
You remember the arcade? Most of them were at the mall, and boy, were they awesome. They were the place to be. Now, I know you kids today, you don't really hang out anywhere. All you do is get on Snapchat or Instagram or Twitter and all that stuff and talk to people. But this was the social place to be as a teenager because, hey, we couldn't hang out at bars. And in fact, this was better than bars. Who wants to go out and just drink and stay at a bar when you could play Dragon's Lair, or you could play Tempest, or you could play Tron? Remember Tron? Oh, not the movie. You remember Tron, the video game with the bikes? Dragon's Lair, man. It looks just like a cartoon, didn't it? And let's not forget Miss Pac-Man. I was the Miss Pac-Man champion. That's right. No one in my neighborhood could beat me. Now I thought I was really good till I saw the documentary King of Kong. Those people love video games, and if they probably make me look like an amateur. But back then, in my day, if you were at the arcade and you saw me put a quarter on Miss Pac-Man, you were fixing to lose your quarter because we were going down head on head, Miss Pac-Man, and I was gonna beat your ass. Chompa, 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 wah, 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 chompa, 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 wah, 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 wah.
Introduces the woman of the year, Ms. Pac-Man, with a style of entertainment that Pac-Man never knew, an endless supply of floating goodies, oranges, pretzels, 4 different screens.
But it was a social place to be. You get dropped off by your mom about 6, 7 o'clock, and she'll come get you about 9:30 when it closed. And it's true, you better had your pockets full of quarters. Well, tokens anyway. The arcade is the best place to hang out in the 80s. Number 7 is what you did when you wasn't at the arcade because you didn't have any tokens and you sat at home. And I'm not sure how many of the other people know all this stuff here. So this one might be a little obscure, but it's the games for the Commodore 64. What? Games for the Commodore 64? How's that fun? Well, my brother had a box. He somehow pirated all these games. So we had about every game you could imagine because he was some kind of nerd club where they would all trade copies of games on those big floppy disks. You know, the real ones that are really floppy. But we put them in, but some of the greatest games was Hero, Lode Runner, Agent USA. Oh, man. Did anybody play Agent USA? Oh, or Fuzz Buzz, where you was like this little fuzz thing, and you had to go buy tickets to get on this train, right? So you get on the ticket, and you get a ticket to buy these trains and go to this other town, and you have to turn all these other fuzz-busting things into people with hats. They were just hats with legs. But I think it was called Agent USA. It was awesome. Why don't anybody remake Agent USA today? Does anybody remember Agent USA? Please say it's not just me. And another one I loved, 7 Cities of Gold. Did anyone play 7 Cities of Gold? It didn't look that fun, but it was amazing. And I've looked for other simulation games since then, or RPG games since then. I can't find any that I love as much as 7 Cities of Gold. You got all your information on the side screen. Right in the middle, you got a little square of your boat, and you discovered a new country. You got out, walked around, maybe ran into some natives. Either you could trade with them, kill them, or sometimes they'll kill you and they don't want to trade. But you need their trade, you need their money, you need their food, you need their help. But some of the natives were evil. And then sometimes you accidentally killed the leader by accident because you get too close to trade with him, you touch him, and he died. And then you have to go back to England and ask for some more money. 7 cities of gold. But the best game for the Commodore 64 had to be Impossible Mission.
Another visitor. Stay a while. Stay forever.
No, not Mission Impossible, Impossible Mission. And not only was it a great game, but it has the best yell of someone falling in a hole of any game ever. Impossible Mission. I never solved it. My brother could solve it. I played it for hours and hours and I could never solve Impossible Mission. But I still remember the start of that game. Stay a while. Stay forever. Oh, that's a classic game. But coming in at number 7 of things that remind me of the 80s, the Commodore 64. Or the Commodore 128, because they have 64 built into it. But mostly it's not the computers, the games, like Impossible Mission, the Hero, Load Runner. Oh man, Load Runner, you can make your own levels on Load Runner. It was, Load Runner. God. Man, I gotta go play some Commodore 64. Anyway, that's a look at Commodore 64 at number 7. So let's get on with the list. And number 6. Sure, we all loved Saturday Night Live growing up. But as a child of the 80s, there was something to us, at least that spoke to our age, that was a lot funnier. And you know what that was, don't you? Don't you say I don't know, because you might get some slime on you. That's right. You know what it is now. It's called You Can't Do That on Television with Moose, Lisa, and my favorite all, Kevin Kupachowski.
He's not doing his homework, dear. He's practicing signing his autograph.
No. Kevin with a K.
Oh, yeah, right.
And it goes at the beginning, dear.
Man, everybody remember Kevin Kupachowski? He had the perfect wings in his hair. Now, I know some of you younger guys are saying, what are you talking about wings in his hair? Did he have wings in his hair? Well, that was kind of like a feather look that the cool kids, that the cool guys anyway, had back in the 80s. I mean, I could never have them, you know. My hair just grows up big and bigger and bigger. It wouldn't ever flow around like that, like it would for Kevin Kupachowski.
Christine, what is the big holiday in April that we celebrate what used to be the Roman New Year?
I don't... you almost caught me. Forget it, Ross.
But You Can't Do That on Television was a sketch show for kids with kids. And that was so great about it. It was mostly children doing the skits. Well, you did have Barf and, you know, the stagehand. What's in the burger? You had him and his redheaded wife. I don't know her name, but she was always at the house doing something silly. I see a lot of people on Twitter talking about Nickelodeon in the 90s and the early 2000s. Calissa Explains All, or iCarly, or Drake and Josh, or what is it? All That. None of these shows can compete with You Can't Do It on Television. Come on, man. You know you loved it. You know you got a crush on Moose. Anyway, You Can't Do That on Television. Classic comedy, and it comes in at number 7.
Bart's is a definite must for a delightful gourmet experience.
Did I hear that?
Here I am at number 5. Now, Carrie Fisher was my first crush, but who was my first love? Alyssa Milano!
Hips up and hold the ankles and just a little bounce. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and reach forward.
I don't care what Tony Dennis did. Only reason guys like me tune in to watch Who's the Boss? Alyssa Milano. Whew. And she's still as beautiful today as she was then. I watched a lot of episodes of Who's the Boss, and that show kind of sucked. She even called me to buy a Teen Beat magazine one time. I know why they call it Teen Beat. Alyssa Milano. There was a lot of girls in the 80s, but there was only one Alyssa Milano.
Great. See you later, Tony.
Number 4, we're back at the movies because this guy really spoke to me. Because I was a nerd growing up. I used to try to do computer programming on my TRS-80 computer. Anybody had a TRS-80? That should have been on my list. That's number 11, TRS-80. That was a crazy computer. You had to hook a cassette tape player up to it to play your games.
Radio Shack has the perfect gift. The TRS-80 computer.
But anyway, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this guy, David Lightman, the computer hero of the 80s. Matthew Broderick from War Games. Now, I know a lot of you grew up in the 80s think that right there is Ferris Bueller. And I love Ferris Bueller, don't get me wrong. But David Lightman, he's what I wanted to be in high school. Well, what I thought I was going to be. I think I saw this movie in around 83. I was still in elementary school, but I thought when I got to high school, that's going to be me. Changing his grades, breaking into computers, playing all kinds of games that he ain't supposed to play yet. David Lightman was the coolest hacker there was. Now, looking back at the movie now, it's kind of out of date. And I keep thinking, man, I'm not really one to remake movies, but I would go for a War Games remake if they done it right. The sad thing is, you know Hollywood. They'll remake War Games and David Lightman will have a hologram computer screen and probably a artificial intelligent robot in his room. They would make it so over the top that it would take the fun out of it. But that's one thing War Games did is they kept it realistic, and that's what's so great about it. You really thought you could do that.
David Lightman was a master at computer games. A fast thinker.
Oh, David! Maybe you could tell us who first suggested the idea of reproduction without sex.
Your wife?
Get out, Lightman.
David Lightman, now that was an American hero growing up. So, number 4, the movie War Games.
Is this a game or is it real?
War Games. Playing soon at a theater near you.
Shall we play?
Number 3, if David Lightman was the teenager I wanted to be, then who was the adult I wanted to be when I grew up? Is anybody cooler than Magnum P.I.? What a great show. And I've been watching it again on Hulu, and it really holds up, unlike a lot of shows from the 80s. If you never watched Magnum, check it out on Hulu. It's a great show. Now, by the end of the run, some of the later seasons, it gets a little corny at times.
Exit. There is a trap door. 2 steps in front of you.
Come on, I've been trapped in this corridor for over 2 hours.
And look at that mustache. That mustache could have had his own show. Why didn't they give this guy a Saturday morning cartoon? But Magnum P.I. with his friends TC, Rick, Ice Pick, and the best of all, Higgy Baby, Higgins. This was a great 1-hour drama. Like I said, if you don't know about Magnum P.I., you hadn't watched it since you were little in the 80s, check it out. It still holds up and still a really great show. And Tom Selleck is the best at this. It also reminds me of the creator. I'm not going to try to say his name, because every time I do, I screw up and have to start this video over. But anyway, he also did a movie that should be on my... But he also did a TV show that should be on my list called Tales of the Golden Monkey. Did anybody see that? Tales of the Golden Monkey? What's great about Magnum was a show that you watch with your family. Your parents could like it because it wasn't made or aimed for children, more like the A-Team was. Yeah, the A-Team was good and adults liked it, but it's kind of silly, especially when you go back and look at it now. But don't get me wrong, I still enjoy the A-Team. But Magnum, you and your dad could sit around and watch Magnum all night. And your mom will watch it too, because the ladies loved Magnum. Number 2. Now, I was always a one-trick pony, and I still kind of am. If I like something, I'm like the fanboy of that line, and I don't buy anything else. And I was all about Star Wars toys, Kenner Star Wars toys. As you probably know, that was my love. But in 1984, my parents, or Santa Claus, forced me into loving another line. Masters of the Universe, or the He-Man collection, as I would call it. I would call it He-Man. My brother would get upset. It's not He-Man, it's Masters of the Universe. I said, I don't got time to be saying Masters of the Universe. It takes too long. I just called it He-Man. I'd say, where's my He-Man toys? Hey, Mom, can we watch He-Man? Where's my He-Man toys? Take me to see the He-Man movie. Why the hell did you make me go see that He-Man movie?
You can pit He-Man against Beastman playing for the power of Castle Grayskull. You have to put the castle together.
But He-Man, Master Universe, whatever you want to call it, it was a great toy line, and it went really well with a great TV cartoon series. Every day I'd rush home to watch He-Man. He came on at 3 o'clock, and I got out at 2:45, so I didn't have time to talk. I had to get home in time to see him hold up the magic sword and yell, "By the power of Grayskull!" That's right, number 2. A toy line and a great cartoon series, He-Man, or as you like to call it, Masters of the Universe.
If you've been touched that way, don't be ashamed. Tell someone you trust, like your parents, your doctor, your teacher, or counselor, or your minister or rabbi.
Right, Orko? Right on!
They say you never forget your first love, and I guess that's true, because I'll never forget the first time I saw her. The Nintendo.
Nintendo Entertainment System.
I was at this girl's house, Katrina, and of course I went there to try to hit on her, but when I saw her brother playing some game called Super Mario Brothers, I forgot about girls for probably 3 or 4 years, because I was in love with a girl named Nintendo.
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
Now, I grew up playing video games, but the Atari 2600 always seemed like my brother's console. He was about 5 years older than me, and I was always playing his games. I was really too little to get into it, although I did love Adventure and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Combat and a lot of games for Atari. But Nintendo was my generation's game system. My brother had Atari, I had NES, and Super Mario was the game to have.
Mario!
Mario! Mario! Mario! Mario! Mario!
He's back.
I mean, let's talk about some of the great games, like Zelda. And then also, it wasn't just Mario, there was other great games, like Zelda. And believe it or not, I like Zelda 2 better. Yeah, I like Link's Adventure better than Zelda. I never really got into Zelda, but hey, that's me. We're all different, right? Not saying Zelda was a bad game, I just really enjoyed Link. And I remember playing Super Mario 2, well, I couldn't get past the boss at the end, and I had to call this 900 number in Nintendo Power and talk to the game counselors, and they would tell you how to get past stuff. And I didn't know then they would charge you probably 20, 30 cents a minute or whatever. I didn't know until I got screamed at for having a high phone bill. I mean, I just wanted to know how to kill wart. But when I saw Katrina's brother playing Super Mario on Nintendo, I knew what I wanted for Christmas. I went right home that day and told Mom, I saw what I wanted for Christmas, Mom. A Nintendo. What's a Nintendo? It's the greatest video game system ever created. You have Atari. Just go play your brother's Atari. I want a Nintendo. Shut up, I'll give you a Nintendo. Oh, Mommy, don't hit me again. Okay, my mom wasn't like that, But number 1, although this isn't really a top 10 list, but number 1, the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, and mostly Super Mario Brothers. Whew. Can you think of the 80s without a Nintendo? Well, that's my list of 10 things that remind me of the 80s. Did I forget something in the 80s that you loved? Leave it in the comments below so we can discuss it. Or maybe you'll think of something I didn't think of, and you'll blow my mind that I've totally forgot about. Like, I forgot about Audrey Lee. And you're saying, who's Audrey Lee? Well, I'm not sure how many people is going to know Audrey Lee, but she's this girl.
I'm Audrey Lee. See you next time on Kids Beat.
And I used to hear that annoying voice every day at 3:05. You remember that TBS would show stuff at 10:05, at 05 or 35? It would screw your whole day up. You're like, I'm trying to watch He-Man, but I got to turn it over to Gilligan's Island at 10:05. Why did you do that, TBS?
Arachnophobia, 8:05 Eastern, Monday night on the Superstation.
But anyway, leave us in the comments of some stuff maybe you remember in the 80s or some stuff we talked about here. And I'll see you on the next video. Until then, keep your eye on StarWarsJunk.net.
Remember me? I'm the kid that had a report due on space. Then I got the new Encyclopedia Britannica.
He had a report due on space, and then he got the new Encyclopedia...
I think I made that abundantly clear.
Yes.
Anyhow,